You don't have to be Nostradamus to forecast that a politician will break any promise, because it was never about real change, but maintaining the status quo. Hello, and welcome back to the Citi-Zen-Ship Show. My name is Clinton. I have a very cool interview for you guys today. This is one from the vault. I recorded this back after the Canadian federal election this spring, and I've had a crazy summer and I've been sitting on this footage for far too long, but I am very excited to share it with you guys today. So without further ado, let's just jump into this interview all about how do we stop politicians from lying so much? Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Citi-Zen-Ship Show. Today, we are here with Max Daigle, the author of Beyond Democracy. We're going to be talking about meritocracy. We're going to be talking about professionalizing the political industry. And just some thoughts about our post-election, because we are filming this about a week after the 2025 federal election. So, Max, thank you so much.
You're welcome, buddy.
What I like to do is to kick things off for those unfamiliar. Can you just tell us who you are and where you came from?
Well, I'm originally from New Brunswick, and I've been a political activist for about 30 years. So when I was about 18, 19, I started into my so-called journey as an activist. I worked most of my life in Alberta, and now I got a boat on Vancouver Island. So this is what brings me out here.
That's perfect. Yeah, you're just staying on the island working on the boat, and you're preparing for a little sea voyage this fall, you're saying, right?
Yeah. Hopefully make it down south to Mexico.
That's perfect. So this book is why we were kind of connected in the first place. I'm just going to read this one line, and we're going to kind of kick it off from here. And really, this talks to the idea, as I said at the beginning, about how do we professionalize politicians and make it more of a legitimate profession, essentially. So the line here I wanted to start off with is, we must move beyond trust. Democratic systems must account for human flaws by incorporating robust checks and balances. So I love that argument. Can you kind of walk us through what led you to that and your interpretation of that line?
Well, basically, it's that we have a democracy right now, which we have three main branches, let's say, of democracy in Canada. We have a parliamentary democracy, we have a representative democracy, and liberal democracy. But to me, it's not good enough. My whole life, and from hearing from friends, from colleagues, from people all over the country, is that this politician lies, or they break promises, or they don't answer questions, they deflect.
Yes.
Right? They manipulate us. And you hear that all the time. And every election, you have all these big promises that we have from politicians. And where's the contractual law? Where's the checks and balances, as you see in course in the judiciary, to keep the integrity of the process? So why don't we have something similar in politics, right? So we have no demonstrated competence, ethical training, proper laws to address the human flaws, because we all have them.
Right.
And we need to address that to make democracy as we see it now better. It's not that everything's, and a lot of people will argue, well, it's better than communism or socialism. And that's the excuse people always fall on. But we need to step back and say, okay, can we make it better? Yes or no? If it's no, okay. But could it be better? Yes. So I propose in the book how we could make it better.
Awesome. And let's dive into that, because I think you put a good metaphor in place. I think most of us are familiar, even if we haven't been in a court of law. We've seen enough Law and Order, enough TV shows to know the word perjury and the understanding that it is illegal to say something false or promote falsehoods when you're on trial.
Yep.
Now, one of the main points that you've identified is that politicians do not have that same kind of scrutiny on them, and there's no restrictions on what they can say.
No.
To your knowledge, is there any prerequisites for becoming a politician?
Doesn't look like it because it looks like just a popularity contest.
Right.
People get the political power based on popular vote. To me, that's not good enough. And I hear it all the time. I talked to a friend even this afternoon that I hadn't talked in a while, an elder from New Brunswick. And she was telling me, like, we were talking about, my book and stuff. And he said, yeah, like I voted, but it's like it didn't count. What was the point of my vote? Like, I know it feels wasted. I get it. I haven't personally voted, and I'm not ashamed to say it, in 28 years. I voted once. I don't even remember it was federally or provincially. Because I saw right there that we were being manipulated. We have all these big promises. We have all these big discourse. They're giving vague answers. Every time a journalist asks them questions that are a little bit pressing to try to get to objective truth, and you don't get it, right?
I completely hear you. Yeah, and we are going to get into this voter apathy and voter engagement later on in the interview. But so what are some solutions that you have? Because you were actually working. I remember you sharing a story when we initially met about you trying to push a certain piece of legislation that would potentially correct some of this stuff. Can you go into that now?
Yeah, so what I did was I went to Ottawa. Before I wrote this one, I published another book called Reforming Democracy. So I decided to go from Alberta. I drove to Ottawa, took an Airbnb for a month, spent a month in Ottawa, tried to get to know politicians that I didn't know from all political stripes to see if they would sponsor a petition to reform parliamentary privilege. Now, most people are not aware of what parliamentary privilege is. Parliamentary privilege was entrenched in the Constitution in Canada in 1867. Now, you could argue that was necessary at the time. So the reason for it that you could argue was to protect Canada as a nation with its politicians from repercussions from the monarchy.
Right.
Okay, so if they said something the monarchy or did something the monarchy didn't approve of, the crown, they were protected by a parliamentary privilege.
Okay.
Now, that was the argument back in those days. In the UK, that was passed in 1689. In the US, they have something similar that was passed in 1789 under the Speech and Debate Clause, Article 1, Section 6.
And just so I understand, this is to mitigate disputes between the crown and politicians, right?
It wasn't at the beginning, yes.
Right. Okay.
But at the same time, it gave them carte blanche of being able to say whatever they want, however they want, in the House of Commons, in the Senate, in the capacity of their employment as a politician. Okay? Now, it's being used now to protect themselves from being able to lie, to deflect, to manipulate, to make grandiose promises.
Yes.
Right? And that's a problem. So I went to Ottawa to see if any political party would sponsor a petition to reform parliamentary privilege to possibly create political perjury.
Okay. And what was the response from the politicians you met with?
So I approached the Green, I approached the NDP, Bloc Québécois, Conservatives, Liberals, all of the ones that are holding seats. Okay. And I was only able to meet with an independent from Quebec that was used to be a conservative and conservative from Calgary Shepherd. When we met, I gave him 4 drafts and he said, no, I can't do it. I said, and he went on without exaggerating, Clinton, at least 5 minutes telling me how the NDP lie, the Liberals lie, blah, blah, blah. For 5 minutes straight, I just sat there. I said, here's your solution. Oh, can't do it. I said, oh, so you are not okay with the Liberals or the NDP lying, but you want to have the capacity to be protected to lie. Right?
That's the hard thing. And the thing that I like though about this topic, or at least this movement, is if we were to bring awareness. I think this is an easy sell to constituents, to the public, right? Have you had much pushback when you bring this up with the average person? No, it's just the political class that is kind of apprehensive of this.
Yeah. See, it's most people will admit politicians lie, because we all know all humans lie.
And as you say, it's not a, like, obviously being a pathological liar is a negative, but you raised a good point that it is a natural human trait.
Exactly.
And that we shouldn't really demonize people for the white lies they do, because we all do it. So instead of assuming that we're going to be trustworthy, why don't we build systems that actually account for that unhonesty?
Exactly. It's not, partisan. It's not like attacking that political party or being tribalist about it. Mm-hmm. It's that admitting that we all, from time to time, lie. And imagine if we had a judiciary, a court system that allowed for disrespectful behavior, deflecting from answering questions, lying,
booing, shouting, heckling.
Manipulating.
Yeah.
Like, imagine if that was the case that was allowed. Like, what would be would the court process be healthier or not?
Probably less healthy. Yes.
Probably, right? So is it perfect? No, it's not. There's things there that could be improved. But it's the same thing. In the political landscape, we need to address these issues. And we need to have a process of proper vetting, demonstrated competence, proper psychological screening to show that they're psychologically fit, to have the integrity and the skills to have that political power. I don't think it's much to ask, because most professions, there's a lot of professions that are, high risk or whatnot, that demand these things for very important reasons.
You would not, I just look at the trades. I have many friends who are electricians and plumbers, and there is so much schooling and standards and things that happen. You're not just going to hire some random person to wire your house.
No.
It's dangerous and illegal, right? But when it comes to politics, you don't need any understanding of the Constitution. And to your point, actually having psychological tests to make sure that you do have the public's best interest at heart. These all things would be very beneficial for the system, I think.
For sure. Who knows? Who knows? If we don't have any psychopaths or narcissists in power.
And arguably, the current system, I don't know, some would, I don't mean to be the whole Chicken Little here, but some would argue that the current system's lack of checks actually attracts these people and gives them a little petri dish to, evolve into.
For sure, because people with that, it's not, let's be clear, like to diagnose someone as a psychopath, to clinically diagnose someone as a psychopath or a narcissist or a sociopath or whatnot, like, it's rare, because the process is, it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of time, right? So that's why I refer in the book to a study that was done by two psychologists that was published in 2002, that two psychologists from UBC, right? That talk about what is called the dark triad. That even though you might not be diagnosed as a narcissist or a psychopath, you may have traits, personality traits, that matches these disorders that might be to a level where it's very harmful for people.
Right.
Right?
Mm-hmm. I can see that.
So the study is there. And later on, they created a way to be able to measure that. Right? So the study is there to back it up. And the process to see where people are on the spectrum is there. So, in my opinion, it should be a part of the process.
Just the idea that, and I've been trying to say this to people a long time, like the voting process is really a job hiring process, right? You are picking your representative. So many individuals. I ran the polls. I was working at the polls up on Craig Street Commons, and I had my little ballot box and all that. And even I was, there was a few people, a handful, who was just like, oh, I won't use the leader's name, but the leader's not on the ballot. And I go, oh, I'm sorry, you're actually voting for your local rep. And, I understand if the individual doesn't know, but I'm surprised to see that so many people are still thinking that it's like the presidential system, that we vote for the leader directly. And really, you are electing a member of parliament to represent you. And that individual needs to be of sound body and mind and all these beautiful things.
For sure. Again, all I just said there, it doesn't just apply to the leader.
Yes.
It should apply to all representatives
Exactly.
that are running for office or holding office, right?
For
because,
sure.
Because in Canada, if you go to, I was trying to find the percentage of debates per riding that happen between political parties.
That's a good stat.
And I couldn't find it. Right?
We did not have one here in Alberni. There was one in North Nanaimo that did happen, but yes, our riding did not have a debate actually, which is very unfortunate.
Imagine, like you have people running for office, you have no psychological screening, no proven competency or education or whatnot, no laws to hold them accountable, all the et cetera, the above, and not even a debate to at least have people a chance to see how they behave and how they react and see their knowledge about certain things or certain topics or whatnot. Mm-hmm. Not even a debate. Like to me, it's sometimes I walk around and I think to myself, I'm like, am I in a Twilight Zone or something here? Like,
Seems like it.
Am I so wrong at the way I look at it? And this is partially why I never voted. And that's why a lot of people, which there's other reasons, someone could be lying in bed with cancer, dying or something. You can't expect these people to go vote. So there's a percentage of people that don't vote. For me, I'm not alone. There's a lot of people who are like, what's the point? Like, no. I can't trust a system that allows this type of behavior and manipulation. They don't vote.
The non-voter is the largest voting bloc. There are more non-voters than there are conservative supporters, liberal supporters, and NDP supporters. Maybe not together, but if you took the non-voter as a political party, they would win 40% of the vote.
Like I think it went up to like 70% this federal election, right? It was
70% participation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Voting rate. It was way high.
Mm-hmm.
Way
it was higher this year, I heard. And higher early voting, I heard. Yeah. Historic highly early voting.
Over 7 million or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I didn't get super into the numbers yet. I did have a chuckle that it was like 130 people who are still voting for the marijuana party, though. I found that funny.
Yeah. But that's another thing. Do we really need parties, right?
What are your thoughts on that?
No, I don't think so. If you look in contrast to a business, a sports team, a organization, a nonprofit, whatever it may be, a relationship of two people,
right?
Doesn't matter. If you are into that collective and you are in a competition for power and you're going to vilify each other, you're going to disrespect each other. Mm-hmm. You're going to lie to each other to gain that leverage. Do you think it's going to be healthy?
No.
So this is what we have in politics.
And that's the big issue with the political party system I see. And you raise the parallel with business and sports teams. You can say...
or a relationship, intimate relationship.
Sure, like, but I just mean
a lot of people. Most people have experience with that.
They do, yes.
Right? So if you're going to have someone that's going to try to leverage to have that power over the other, do you think it's going to be healthy? No, it's going to be toxic. Right? So to me, I propose it in the book, and I'm not saying that's the first thing that we need to address, but in my view, if you had all independent representatives running for office or holding office, we wouldn't have all this time wasted during question period in all these things. Everybody would be searching to get close as they could to objective truths about whatever subject it may be to be able to address it.
Right, because what's the goal of Parliament, right? Good governance, to pass good laws for the purpose of the people and the public good. And that's very hard to define. But that should be the goal. And I think the biggest issue with political parties is you're right. It's like, this is what's good for our group. And that is inherently bad for the other group because it's a zero-sum game. You know, what's good for the conservatives is bad for the liberals and vice versa. And they're acting in a way that is combative instead of collaborative. And that's the biggest critique I see with the modern political party.
It's not necessary. It's not.
Well, they would argue that, you know, the public is so confused and busy that, you know, they just want to see who's on Team Blue, you know, and that if we have a team with a certain ideology, that's the argument. I don't really buy into it myself personally, but they would say that it's easier for the voter to have political parties because then that'll make it easier to understand what the certain candidate believes.
Okay, so this is why, like, if you read through the whole book, like I run through that whole scenario.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, where this is why you would need all the pieces, which the list is only 6.
I'm just on chapter 1, everybody. So it's a good read so far, though.
I just have 6 points that I bring forward that if you would put them all together, where you have laws that politicians cannot deflect, cannot lie, cannot have disrespectful behavior, right? You have these things there.
And they're
actual law, binding by what they promise, right? You have all these things in place. Then, all independence. Now, they could not go just by ideologies or beliefs or about climate change or whatever it may be, because they'd have to prove it. They have to prove their point. And they'd have to speak in the context of what is provable. And if it's just an opinion, you have reform, parliamentary privilege, political perjury. You can't say that climate change, as to make it short, just to make the point, climate change isn't real. Okay, then. Is it real or it's not real? If you say it's not real, there's a law there to hold you accountable. You could go to jail for this, buddy.
Oh, yeah.
Right? But that's what I'm saying. So if you have all these things in place, you can't just give opinions like objective truths or absolute truths. So and you'd have to be so careful about what they say and what they do. It wouldn't matter if out of all independence, right? They think, the way it's been sold for so long, political parties, is you challenge the others on what they say and what they do. But you can't go by just what people believe. It's got to be objective truth, objective evidence, right? And if it's just an opinion, I think this will help fix this or help alleviate the problems of this. Okay, say it as an opinion, right? And if we need to correct, we correct. But as soon as somebody, you look at politicians nowadays, they'll do a certain step forward about something, right? They've sold it so hard. It's a catch-22. They sold it so hard that to retract and admit that maybe you're wrong, maybe they were wrong, it's so hard.
Because it's not that they've been saying this maybe 1 or 2 times. There are certain politicians that have built careers off certain falsehoods or lies or things like this, and they've been repeating the same message for a decade, right? So it's harder to backpedal.
Imagine to backpedal on that.
Yeah.
Right? But again, like if you look at the context of most people have experience here as an employee, as an employer, as being a part of an intimate relationship, a sports team, an organization, a nonprofit, whatever you name it. Like everybody had experience where it was healthy. And everybody could describe to you why it was healthy. And if it was toxic, they can easily describe to you why it was toxic. Right? But it's the same thing. You have the power that these people have. You need to find mechanisms and proper checks and balances and vetting and screening process to be able to have the best that we can. It will never be perfect. I'm not saying what I have in there would make it perfect, because humans aren't perfect. All I'm saying is this is a way to make it better.
Yeah, that just that point where we have to understand the limitations of humans and work with the limitations of humans. And I guess, is it too cynical? I guess we'll kind of round off this conversation by saying that. Is it cynical to just be untrustworthy? Because that would be the critique I could see, you're just assuming politicians are liars, and that's a very cynical approach to take.
No, I don't think it's just being humble enough and have humility enough and have respect enough for yourself and for others without vilifying. Like, you've never heard me, and you read my book, like I don't go out naming political parties or politicians, right?
Yeah, you did a really good job of just sticking to the theory of it.
No,
Yeah.
it's just that we're all humans. It's just that they have such a responsibility and such a power that we don't have, that it needs to be stepped up to a point where we have things there while we have our busy life and stresses of our daily lives, whether you have kids or business or employment or whatever it may be you're going through in life, right? That there's proper checks and balances there to keep them in check. Not just say that at the next election, if you don't like what they said, they've broken a promise, they lied, they manipulated. Very hard to prove if they lied or not, right? There's something there to hold them accountable, not beyond your vote.
Yes.
At the next election. Because a lot of people, what will do is they choose the lesser of two evils. And to me, that's not acceptable.
And I guess that translates into one of your big arguments about why people have a hard time participating in the political process is just because there is this lack of transparency, this lack of information. They do say things, but there's no really reason to say that they're saying is true or if it's backed up. It's just very pie in the sky, and it's just not relatable to people.
All these platforms, what they had, like, you look at the political parties, right? They most of them released their platforms a few days or a day before the first leaders debate. One political party only released it after the early voting, after 7 million people had voted.
That shocked me, honestly. And on an election that has been we could have been like, the opposition wanted to go to an election in the fall. And it shocked me that
2 years.
It shocked me that the platforms were so delayed coming out the door, and especially, I'll just say, like, the liberal parties who had just completed a whole leadership race. You would have assumed that the party platform would have been created in tandem with that leadership race because they had the the members, I guess, the party members there. So that was another thing that I just found very odd, that you elect your leader, but then the platform took another several weeks, right?
But that's the thing. See, there's so much, and this is why I say, like, political parties, this infighting, this in the House of Commons and everything else. Like, there's so much time and energy wasted on all of that all day, every day, whether it's in the media, with journalists, or whether it's in the House of Commons or whatnot, that there's so much time, and, like, they don't have the time and resources to even start working in unison on how things are at the moment to be able to address the issues, because all they do is try to, like, fight for a popularity contest all the time. It's not like a business where you have a business or an organization or a sports team. You work together all the time. You see a little fault there, you work on correcting that all the time. Boom, 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 all the time, to always get better.
Right.
So how can you have a system to get better, a country to get better, when most of the time it's just to fight to win a popularity contest? It can't be effective, because then all of that's put aside, where you would need to focus on, okay, how is housing? How is this? How is that? How is the economy? How is inflation? How is all these issues that we all have that they are there to manage for us? All the energy is wasted. All the time is wasted.
It's frustrating. And I think, to your point, I think that's why we see low levels of engagement. And I just. So are there any kind of solutions, not to give away the ending of the book here? You mentioned, the importance of life is to kind of walk around with a smile sometimes. We try not to be as doom and gloom. So, what are some kind of tangible solutions that you've seen from not only the researching of the book, I guess, but just from your depth of experience as an activist? Any kind of key solutions you wanted to talk about now, or what things that you're pushing forward?
It's the same old saying that most people know. Honesty is the best policy.
Amen.
right? The truth will set you free.
Yes.
But in politics, it's not the case.
Mm-hmm.
But we need to start to be honest with ourselves, with each other, with respect, with humility, with having proper conversation, communication, respectful, have integrity, right? When we say something, right? Your word is important. Your word should be everything. If you can't hold your word, in my view, you ain't good.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I can't trust you.
I really like that. That's a good point, man. So, in kind of just in closing, then, so you are supportive of representative democracy. You're supportive of kind of engaging in politics, but the idea is that we just need to have a higher standard for these politicians, and to your point, more guidelines and professionalization of them,
And checks and balances,
and
such
checks
as
and
laws
balances.
that we have in the court system, right? A better process to before giving political power, not just based on popular vote, but popular vote after they've proven, right? That's the thing about a meritocratic democracy. We would still have what I'm suggesting. We would still have a voting popularity contest as we have now. But before that, we'd have proper psychological screening to make sure they're psychologically fit, proper vetting, make sure they're competent, they have the integrity and the skills,
And the
have the
knowledge.
proper laws, proper knowledge to address what they're handling, whether it's health, whether it's economics, whether it's right, whatever it may be, housing, whatever it may be, right? Not just a popularity contest and you give that over to someone that knows nothing about health or whatever it may be. You never accept a Max to be a neurosurgeon tomorrow morning just because I want to be a neurosurgeon.
Mm-hmm. And you happen to know a lot of people that signed a paper that said that, sure, this guy could be a
This
good
guy's a
neurosurgeon.
great guy. I
Yeah.
think he should be a neurosurgeon. Come on, now. Right?
Right. Is there anything, I guess, you'd like to say to the young ones? Because I always like kind of that classic question, because it can be hard for people starting out in politics, and it can seem demoralizing because there's a lot of forces that don't want change and want to keep things the status quo. So what would you say to those kind of young activists out there who really want to push for meaningful change in this country?
Don't lose hope. Watch your emotions. Don't let the emotions get the best of you. Because you're going against Goliath.
Mm-hmm.
They have all the cards, they have all the leverage, they have all the power, and you have to remain calm. If you don't remain calm, sadly, we get labeled with anyone that has certain concerns about certain things as we do. Stay calm, and learn from your elders if you can.
Mm-hmm.
From your parents, there's things to learn all the time from people that have more experience. But at the same time, don't trust everything they tell you because they've been trained to see things in a certain way,
Yes.
right? And it might be wrong. It might be right. You might be wrong as an individual, as an activist, but you might be right. You might be onto something. But don't, even if you stand alone, don't, if you, in your heart it says you're onto something, you're onto something. Don't let it go.
I love that. So there's that hope and that passion, but also the curiosity, because I didn't emphasize that, but I'd like to. This whole idea that the stories that we tell ourselves, the things that are of course true, sometimes aren't. And only through self-discovery and going out and challenging your own beliefs can we really find knowledge. Truth is really hard to find.
Very hard. Absolute truth or objective truth, very hard to find.
Very hard to find.
You notice the quote that I put in there from Mark Twain right at the beginning?
Where was it there? Here. You want to read it out to
Right
us?
at the beginning,
Yeah.
right? And it says exactly basically what you just said. For Mark Twain, it says, what gets us in trouble is not what we don't know. It's what we know for sure that just ain't so.
That is a beautiful line. So I'm going to put a link to this down in the description of the YouTube video. Definitely check it out. I've been having a great time reading it. Again, Max, thanks so much.
Welcome, buddy.
Anything else you wanted to close with?
All good.
You're all good. Perfect. All right. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks, buddy.
Thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you got something out of that conversation. Do subscribe to the YouTube channel if you want to have more content. Give this video a like and share it with a friend. It's important that we increase the standards that we hold politicians to. We cannot let them get away with this forever, and it involves active citizens shaping the political process. We can create the society that we want to live in, and I think conversations like this are a step in the right direction. Again, thanks so much for listening. My name is Clinton, and I will see you in the next episode.